This is a dangerous groups that we're dealing with now. It was a nightmare.
Flight 807, you're clear for landing. Runway 7, Bravo. All personnel report to the nearest tornado shelter. This is not a drill.
If you need help, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host, Brian West, here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Now, as usual, I give you the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it first, followed by a movie clip, a skit, a trailer, or something that's going on in the community, or maybe some pictures. And then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it, folks. So let's waste no time. Ooh-wee! Let's get to it. Story number 1, a Canfield teen in the soapbox derby World Championship. Parker Lame, a 13-year-old from Canfield, won the world title in the Super Stock division at the 85th First Energy All-American Soapbox Derby in Akron. He took on 70 racers in his division from all over the world, according to a report published by Bob Copeland of the Vindicator. Story number 2. New fire station in Struthers, and Youngstown hires a new economic development director. A new 7,340 square foot fire station, which was finished in Struthers, has opened in Struthers thanks to Daniel H. Becker, a longtime Struthers businessman who donated the land. He gave the land, and now they have the fire station. Now, out of 9 candidates, in other news, out of 9 candidates who applied for the job, Stephanie Gilchrist has been hired as Youngstown's new economic development director. This is according to a news article published July 27th. Story number 3, another local entity striving for area internet growth. Youngstown State University will now step into the 5G internet growth arena. The university will lead 4 Northeast Ohio institutions to serve as a regional hub for the new broadband strategy in the state, according to a Vindicator staff report published July 25th. Now, according to the report, the U.S. Department of Labor has set aside millions of dollars to establish these hubs. Story number 4. Youngstown schools are still in the headlines. In another transition in less than 2 years, Youngstown City Schools adds new titles to board members after the appointment of Jeremy Batchelor. Now the current news headline talks about site changes due to capacity concerns. This is yet another story highlighting a consistency of changes rather than a consistency of progress in the district. The story is still developing. Story number 5. Liberty School rebel. The Liberty School rebels against social media. Why? Liberty Schools. Haley Roginski has a report about how the Liberty Board of Education has joined a class action lawsuit against Meta, TikTok, YouTube, and Snapchat, claiming that social media is negatively impacting students. The story is gaining some steam. Story number 6. One question about the state budget. What is it? Mahoning County School District has a question about the $86 billion 2024-2025 Ohio State budget, which has a lot to do with property taxes. According to the report, the budget has been criticized by public school advocates for diverting money to charter and community schools. The local report goes on to mention how income and property valuations are overly inflated. The state average per student that they get is about $8,131 per student. The story is still developing. Story number 7 and the top 2 local headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Folks, just to tell you, this should show you how difficult this show is to actually do and produce. I have to spend 7 days a week analyzing, listening, and going through the news. Now, I do this as a service to the community. So when people ask me, they say, Brian, they say, I see you on the show. I always say, I just thank you for watching. you know, because I really don't receive much. I'm putting in a lot of work, but like my mother says, this is my choice. So I'm choosing to do this for you. So when you see me out in public, show me some love, because this is not an easy show to do. I have to remember names. I have to sometimes remember stories, because I'll have typos in the script. So just root me on. Anything you could do for the show, just please show me some love, because I have nothing else to do. This show actually helps my mental health. Story number 7. And the top 2 made this week. Story number 7, why the Lordstown Motors Foxconn issues are important news. Foxconn claims that Lordstown Motors is not a viable business as the dispute between the two businesses intensifies. Foxconn is currently being sued by Lordstown Motors over an investment deal gone bad, according to multiple local reports. Now, one report published by the Mediator July 25th clarifies some questions about the most recent bankruptcy filings. Now, there is a lot in this report. The report even claims about Karma, who sued Lordstown Motors in October of 2020 in a claim that Lordstown Motors stole some trade secrets. Now, the company is seeking more than $913 million in relief. Wow. Now, the entire article makes it seem as though Lordstown Motors is a company sinking into a pit with no way to get out. The article even mentions Lordstown Motors' bad stock ratings at the moment, and it is with stockholders urging the company to file for Chapter 7 instead of Chapter 11. The story is still developing. Story number 8, and the top local headline and developing news story that made it this week: for the greater good of the public, for the donation of my time, the sacrificing of my life, because I enjoy and I love. I've always liked information. I've always liked learning. I've always liked to write. I've always enjoyed journaling. As a child, I grew up. It seems to help me. I'm a former soldier, so I've tried to find something that will keep me occupied. So I'm in here just to keep you informed. So when they say, what do you do? I say I serve by keeping people informed, doing art, being creative, using my mind, folks. Story number 8. Where is the rest of Trumbull County's ARP money? According to a report out of Warren published July 26, Trumbull County commissioners found out that there's millions of dollars short of their nearly $15 million they believed was remaining in the American Rescue Plan funds. Now, this is according to the report. Now, according to the report, there is only $459,000 left in the general fund account of the ARPA funds, and another $6 million under a revenue loss category of the nearly $39 million that was given by the federal government. So I really recommend you check out this article if you have questions about this wording. Now, this article is actually. It was in the Mediator, published July 26. Now, this is according to that report, which was published by Raymond L. Smith. It's a big article. The article goes on to cite a source for the confusion. Now, recent news surrounding Nikki Frenchco is what got the story in, because she has been revealing some of the things that's been taking place. And there's a lot of people unhappy about some things that are taking place in Trumbull County. This story is still developing. Well, folks, those are our top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made this week. I'll be right back with the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories. So don't you go anywhere. You're in the Mediator with me, Brian West. I'll be right back.
Tune in and don't forget to subscribe to Method 8 Inc. YouTube channel. You can also watch free public entertainment. And don't forget to show some support by visiting www.method8inc.com by buying something, clicking something, watching something, or just reading something. You can also sponsor a program as well.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week. You know, I was combing through some topics to talk about this weekend, and I came across a story about I guess a big time NBA star. His son had got a cardiac arrest in it when he was, I guess he was playing basketball, and but it made me think about when I used to coach basketball. I used to coach little kids back in the day, and that is a tough sport to play. I started playing late in my life, so I got booed off the court a lot when I first started, because the process, I guess the actual purpose of the game is you have to make the ball to get points. It's not like football or baseball. You have to concentrate on dribbling this ball and getting it in the hoop. And plus you have defenders, and sometimes you may even be small. It's a rough sport. It's hard to, because if you don't know how to play, there's a good chance you're not going to get the ball. And then sometimes you get frustrated because you want the ball, you feel like you can make it, and you won't get the ball. It's a frustrating sport. And coaching, it makes it no better. You know, you're sitting in there, you're seeing the other team just pretty much wipe you off the floor. And you got nobody who can make the shot. That's why you get these players like that become legends, because they can make shots and they can score and pass. And people go crazy over these sports. Oh, Lord. Somebody get dunked on. Oh, he gave him the business. So this is an amazing sport. And I used to try to play it. Like I said, when I was coaching, it was no different. But what I learned is that I would rather, because they got females who played now, males and female coaches. And being a coach, I knew what it was like, because you would be hollering, make a man shot. And you be wanting to cuss and say things. Sometimes coaches do cuss. Some coaches have even been charged of hitting their players for wanting to get the ball in the hole and play defense. I was just thinking that I would rather have a woman coach than a male coach sometimes. Even though I know this makes no sense, being a man. Because a woman coach, the most she can say is, the most threatening thing she can say is, if you don't make the shot, boy, I'm going to abort you. How you going to abort me? I'm still alive. It's frightening, but it's much better. A male coach may say something. If you don't abort this, if you don't make this shot, brother, I'm going to blow your brains. You're like, oh boy, if I don't make the shot, I'm going to die. So I've learned that when I see women and men playing, I go play with the girls. Because the girls pick me up, carry me on, and they've already given me a chance to live life. But a man, if you don't make that shot, they kicking you off the court, firing you, taking your meal. Just look at some of the NBA coaches. They get fired, can't find a job. That's my story this week, folks. Basketball, sports period. Tough sport. If you see somebody making all the shots, there's a good chance, folks, that they're an alien. Finally got it off my chest. We all know that Big Time Mike may have been an alien from the pyramids. Let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 1. 45% decline in free summer lunch programs. Speaking of kids, feeding the children is still a topic of discussion. Folks, don't take my jokes seriously. I just have to find something to make this show a little bit enlightening. Makes it a little bit more easier on the brain. Story number 7. Feeding the children is still a topic of discussion, as I said. Now, the Food Research and Action Center has a report in circulation about how the number of U.S. children who received free summer lunches has dropped compared to the previous year. That's about 45% decline. Now, this number is important headed into another school year, because you don't want children to go hungry, especially when their parents can't afford to put food on the table. Now, the report even mentions the states which has been the best summer participation rates. It's a whole list of them, a few states. The story is still developing. Story number 2. Does America have an obsession with psychedelics? And everything there is good and bad, folks, but the drug stories are unique. Vox has a headline stating that psychedelics, that's what they call it in the article, might revolutionize therapy. They don't want doctors don't want it to be called psychedelics, probably. Now, the article goes on to mention new breakthroughs in the world of science and drugs, but leaves out some ethical concerns, religious and human concerns, also aspects of the story. Now, although it's a very educational piece about breakthroughs in regards to new ways of treating patients, there are some other opinions when it comes to people dependent on drugs. Now, the discussion does require some understanding of what has been taking place in the mental health and therapeutic arena for some time, but does have some very important talking points when it comes to the current drug debate. It also has some talking points outside of all the other stuff. Now, this story is still developing. One eye-boggling figure in the report cites that over 50 million Americans reported some kind of mental illness in 2020. Story number 3. Is it climate change or just another Earth cycle? The Guardian has an opinion piece about climate change with the headline reading that what frightens me about climate crisis is we don't know how bad things really are. That's what the headline reads. It's an opinion piece. Now, so far, no one seems to have enough data, but the data that we do have in regards to science and research is that the world has cycles of weather. The fact is that no one can prove that man is causing climate change, which we can only speculate. It's almost like going to Florida and you may see it raining on one side of the street. Somebody neighbor saying, it always rain on that side of the street. It'll never rain on this side of the street. That's basically what climate change is. Nobody can really speculate, but they just know that that's the way nature is. You may even look at a big planet like Jupiter and see there's one hole with a big old hurricane, and all the rest of the planet looks pretty cloudy. Well, that's maybe where the Earth is. Maybe they're just some places just get hot or not. You don't know. Now, climate enthusiasts are all over the fact that July has recorded to be one of the hottest years on record for some areas. This story is still developing. Story number 4. Biden's plan on mental health and the American soldier. A U.S. soldier crossed the main line of North Korea. Every American doing strange things. And now the Biden administration has proposed strengthening requirements so that health insurers cover behavioral health. There's some talking points in this story. First of all, North Korea, America's doing strange things, and Biden trying to strengthen health insurance to cover behavioral health. Now, the article published by Axios goes on to state that advocates have long argued that health plans are not adequately covering mental health services. This story is still developing. That's story number 4 made this week. Well, folks, those are our top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week. I'll be right back. Top 4. So don't you go anywhere. You're the Mediator. Be Brian West. I'll be right back. If you want to check out the stories that almost made it in or did make it in, go to our Twitter feed on our website. Welcome back. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Folks, this week we're going to talk about insurance because some areas are refusing to give insurance after they find out that the area is very accident prone. Now, insurance is a fund that a lot of people pay into, and they will remind you when your bill is due and your insurance is about to collapse. A famous comedian once said that insurance is like in case stuff happens. In his words, he used the S word, but I can't use that on public television. So now we come to the point of insurance. You know, I kind of like the Christian concept. That's why I've served as a Christian. I've been born into the blood of Christianity and rebirth and been born again after I've sinned and been born again. I guess what you learn, folks, is that God, blah, 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 Jesus, as the good Reverend would say, is your insurance policy. And that's why I've learned that when I can't pay and I get in an accident and they can't pay me, all I have to give my claim to, especially when I'm broke, naked, and out on the street, is God. So, folks, if you need an insurance policy, I encourage you to find some form of belief in something higher, because once you run out of luck, money, and love, all you may have left is a good Lord. Let there be a day when I find a way to be blessed by you, Jesus. Whatever they call you, God, be my strength, be my blessing, be my insurance policy. Woo! I'm not a gecko. It's God. Let's get to it. Story number 5. The housing market remains in the headlines. Something is taking place in the housing arena, folks. One article in The Guardian has pictures of people who got so fed up with the housing market that they decided to live out of their cars. These are some pretty interesting pictures. Now, another piece in CNBC has a headline focusing on how home prices are climbing. It's a very well-organized article, folks, that talks about how prices have risen 0.7% month to month. The article goes on to inform the reader on key stats explaining that prices are rising again because supply is very low, still very low. Now, the biggest talking point is the fact that the housing market at the moment is unaffordable for many buyers, with some areas seeing high levels of competition as a result of low for sale inventory, according to the research analyst Hannah Jones. Now, one CNBC report by Robert Schiller, a professor of economics at Yale University, says that prices could come down once the Federal Reserve stops its rate hiking cycle. So we'll see that there's two conflicting reports. This story is still developing. Story number 6. Interest rates are still a topic of discussion, even with the U.S. economy blowing past expectations, according to The Hill. One Fox Business report says that the Fed is set to raise interest rates to a 22-year high. According to the piece, this is the plan. I'm going to say plain, flying away plan. This is the plan that's been put in place to crush inflation. Now, the report goes on to say that projected quarter percentage point hikes would set the federal funds rate between 5.25% to 5.5%, further restricting economic activity as the borrowing costs for homes, cars, and other items jump. That means they're going up. So if you know a little bit about economics, so go slow, and I hope you hear me clearly. Now, the piece is definitely written for economic watchers because the stats marking this to be the highest rate hike since 2001 and the 11th increase in nearly a year and a half is what draws people into this story and what's going on. I hope that makes sense. So that's what's happening inside this report. This one particular stat that's marking this to be the highest rate hike since 2001 and the 11th. This is the 11th increase in nearly a year and a half. That's what's drawing people into the story. Now, the demand for workers, the wage battle, and the rise in prices is what has this story still trending. Story number 7 and the top 2 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week for to keep you informed. This is what I do, baby. Could have been a reverend, could have been a preacher, but I'm here. Little bitty newsman with little bitty paycheck. Sometimes none. Story number 7. The gas prices, jobs, and inflation question. Fox Business has a headline stating that gas prices may spike as much as 10 to 25 cents this week in some states. The Washington Post has a headline published July 25th stating that inflation is down. The Washington Examiner has a headline that reads that unemployment has hit a record low for the 4th consecutive month, and just last week Janet Yellen seemed optimistic. There's a lot happening. So the question now is, economically, what should we be preparing for? One headline by MoneyWise says that many of America's workers are now staying on the job past 75 years old, and not just because they're falling short on savings. There is a but in the story. Now, the but is, according to the headlines, experts argue that it's not a viable solution to the retirement crisis, that seeing that people are staying on the job past 75 years old. So, if the country is in an economic mess, people are asking appointed leaders, what should we do as citizens, as the common man? What should we be doing to try to make it better? This story is still developing. Story number 8, and the top international headline and developing news story that made it this week. Folks, if I stumble a verse, I gotta keep going because I make mistakes. That's what some rappers say. You stumble a verse, just keep going. Make mistakes, just keep it. Just keep going. It's weakness if you just stop. You gotta keep going. Story number 8. I don't have any money saved up. I guess that's why we all collect Social Security, right? Maybe that's what we're working for. Social Security, big mountaintop of retirement. On July 24th, Business Insider has a headline that reads that 5.5 trillion savings has been wiped out in the rising risk. They're saying that after it's been wiped out, it's a rising risk for the U.S. economy. So after 5.5 trillion in savings, of people's savings, been wiped out, they're finally saying there's a risk to the U.S. economy. This is new data recording from April 2020, spelling what many see is trouble for the economy in the long run. Now, the article adds to the economic roller coaster ride by going deeper into the data, stating that historically high inflation has been the key reason for the decline in American consumers' cash reserves. Now, the last bullet point in this report talks about the return of student loan bills by stating that savings and spending levels could worsen. The story highlights something historic happening in the economic arena, which is what happens when you flood the market with cash and then the American people spend it all and all of a sudden start running out, especially when inflation hits their savings. This story is still developing. That's why I made it to the top this week, because we're talking money, savings, and that good old safety net. Well, folks, those are our top 8 local and international headlines and developing news stories that I made this week. I hope you got something out of today's program. I always get something out of doing the research. As usual, I'd like to thank all the news outlets, the journalists, the people on the front lines. You deserve all the credit. I'm just the mediator, the man in the middle. If you want to show us some support here at Method 8, it does not take much. All you have to do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or to sponsor a program. Or you can just stop at the store at 5648 Market Street, buy something in the store, support everybody, support me for doing this for you. Well, folks, I'm out here. I'll be back next week looking through over 200 or more stories just to keep you informed. Have a good week, everybody. Thank you for tuning to the Mediator this week. The Mediator this week with me, Brian West. Peace.
Now, send down your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.